There's a terrifying story that every student in Japan has heard at least once, the story of Hanako-san, the ghost in the school bathroom. The rumor says that if you knock 3 times on the door of the girls' restroom on the 3rd floor and call out, "Hanako-san," this mysterious girl will appear, and you will have to face a nightmare from which there is no escape. It's said that Hanako-san was a beautiful student who vanished in a tragic incident many years ago, and her soul still lingers in that bathroom, always waiting for curious souls brave enough to call her name. But the question is she just a harmless ghost, or are there darker, more terrifying secrets hidden behind every story about her? Do you dare challenge fate and call out Hanako-san? What will happen if you encounter her in the school bathroom on a dark night? There's a haunted story that every student in Japan knows. The story of Hanako-san, the ghost in the school bathroom. The legend says that Hanako-san was a beautiful student who lived in an old school full of memories. She loved playing with her friends, but everything changed on a fateful day. One peaceful afternoon, as Hanako played in the schoolyard, an unexpected accident occurred. A terrible tragedy caused her to mysteriously disappear, never to return. Those around her searched for her but found no trace. The entire school was filled with sorrow, but what happened next truly terrified everyone. Instead of resting in peace, Hanako-san's spirit could not move on. She wandered in the very school she had once loved, especially in one room that no one dared approach, the bathroom on the 3rd floor. This is where it all began, where she became trapped in another world and where her soul turned into a warning for anyone brave enough to seek her out. Over time, the story of Hanako-san became a haunting, a curse that no student dared challenge. The story of Hanako-san quickly became a haunting nightmare for all students, a strange rumor everyone knew, yet no one dared to verify. It was said that if you were brave enough to step into the school bathroom one evening when darkness had cloaked everything around, you would face an unimaginable mystery. To meet Hanako-san, all you needed to do was knock 3 times on the bathroom door and then call her name, Hanako-san. Those who dared to tempt fate believed that, if done correctly, Hanako-san's spirit would appear immediately. But the strange thing was, no one could say for sure what would happen next. Stories of those who attempted to call her name always ended with inexplicable, mysterious events. Some said that after calling her name, they heard soft footsteps within the room as if someone was approaching, yet no one appeared. A chilling, heavy presence filled the space, freezing them in place. The footsteps seemed to come from the darkness while they couldn't see a soul. But when looking into the mirror, some claimed to see a faint figure, a girl in a school uniform with long flowing hair and a sorrowful face. She stood there, silent, staring at them with eyes filled with resentment and sadness. Others said that after calling Hanako-san's name, they felt an eerie pull, as if an invisible force was dragging them into the bathroom, unable to escape. Some ran away immediately, but others stood frozen, unable to tear themselves away from the deep, haunting gaze of the ghostly figure. Though each story was different, they all shared one common thread: an overwhelming fear that could never be dispelled. The tale of Hanako-san became a constant reminder for all students. Never dare to challenge fate, especially on quiet, dark nights, when the school bathroom grows eerily silent and more mysterious than ever. On a sunny day, as the students were preparing to leave school, a curious and brave girl decided to challenge her fate. Having heard so many stories about Hanako-san, she was determined not to let the rumors and fear control her. She wanted to see for herself if what people said about Hanako-san was true. One afternoon, as darkness gradually descended and the school grew eerily quiet, she made her way alone to the old bathroom on the 3rd floor. The air in the bathroom was dim and still, as if no one had been there for ages, a strange silence hanging in the air. All the surrounding sounds seemed to disappear, leaving only the echo of her footsteps on the cold tile floor. As she stood before the bathroom door, a wave of fear washed over her. Although she didn't want to admit it, the chill in the air and the stillness of the school made her uneasy. But despite the vague fear inside, she remained determined to move forward, as if challenging herself. Taking a deep breath to calm herself, she knew she had to do this to prove whether the stories about Hanako-san were real. With unwavering resolve, she raised her hand and knocked 3 times on the door. Each knock echoed like a heartbeat, each one bringing her closer to something she could not foresee. "Hanako-san," she called out firmly, though her heart raced in anxiety. She could feel the strange silence in the air, only the sound of her breath echoing in the stillness. The moment after she called out, everything became completely silent. She looked around, seeing nothing but the darkness surrounding her. But then a cold gust of wind blew through, sending a chill down her spine. She turned to look in the mirror, but instead of seeing her own reflection, a faint figure appeared, hazy in the reflection of the dirty mirror. Her heart pounded in her chest, unable to believe her eyes. The figure gradually became clearer, and she recognized it as a girl in a school uniform. Her face was indistinct, but her eyes shone bright, staring intensely at her, filled with resentment and despair. The student stood frozen, her heart racing in her chest as the soft knocks echoed on the door. 3 knocks, clear and sharp, and immediately the air in the bathroom became heavy, as if everything around her had stopped moving. She stood there, breathing rapidly, her eyes fixed on the door, but nothing happened. No one responded. She had done everything right, but the silence was almost more terrifying than any sound. It felt like it was pressing her, forcing her to face something she wasn't prepared for. Suddenly, from inside the bathroom, a strange sound began to echo. It wasn't the sound of wind or the usual noise of the school outside. It was a soft noise, as if someone was walking very quietly, yet no one could be seen. The footsteps echoed in the stillness, each step driving the fear deeper into the student's heart, making her feel as though something was approaching her. She listened intently, but still no one was visible. The footsteps became louder, getting closer and closer, leaving her confused about what was happening. It felt as though an invisible hand was gripping her throat, paralyzing her, preventing her from moving. She looked into the mirror where her own reflection stared back at her in the gloomy space. But then a faint figure began to materialize, slowly becoming clearer, as if someone was standing right behind her. She couldn't believe her eyes, but the image became more defined with each passing moment. It was a girl, dressed in a school uniform, her long hair flowing down, standing silently behind her, completely still. The student was terrified, but she couldn't do anything except stare at the figure. The girl in the mirror said nothing, just stood there, her empty eyes locked onto the student's gaze. Despite the silence, the expression in her eyes, filled with hatred and despair, made the atmosphere even heavier. The student felt trapped by the gaze, unable to escape even though it was just for a few short seconds. The coldness emanating from the girl in the mirror seemed to spread through the student's entire body, making it hard for her to breathe. What had she done wrong? Why was Hanako-san's image appearing before her in this bathroom where everything began? She dared not turn around, standing still, her eyes never leaving the mirror, fearing that if she looked away, she would miss what would happen next. At this moment, the air in the bathroom became heavy, as if time had stopped. The student felt a strange presence surrounding her, though she saw no one. Her heart pounded in her chest and every shiver ran down her spine. She had called out Hanako-san's name, but she couldn't have foreseen what was about to happen. The surrounding space grew eerily quiet, devoid of sound, devoid of movement. Then, unexpectedly, the very thing the student feared most began to unfold. In the mirror before her, a faint figure began to appear. At first, it was just a misty haze, but slowly the form of a girl in a school uniform emerged. Her face was blurry, unclear, but her eyes, those eyes, were unmistakable. It was Hanako-san, her face filled with sorrow. her sad eyes staring intently at the student standing before the mirror. The student couldn't tear her eyes away from the image. Though her limbs were weak and trembling and fear surged through her body, she couldn't move. Each passing second felt like an excruciating trial. Hanako-san stood there, silent, her eyes full of resentment, yet also full of deep, overwhelming pain. The student felt the weight of that gaze, as if all of Hanako-san's sorrow and despair were being projected onto her, like an unavoidable warning. What prevented the student from moving was not malice or hatred. Hanako-san was not a dangerous ghost who wished harm on anyone, but her eyes were filled with such sadness as though trapped in endless pain for years. Those eyes seemed like a silent cry for help, yet also a curse that could never be broken. The student felt as if she were standing on the edge of an abyss, unable to escape that gaze even though she didn't want to. She wanted to turn away, but Hanako-san's eyes were like chains binding her mind. With each passing second, her fear grew stronger, but she couldn't move, couldn't walk away. The student finally understood that Hanako-san's eyes were not just filled with hatred, but with a desperate longing to be freed from her endless suffering. She stood there, mesmerized by the hazy image in the mirror, unsure whether she would ever escape the school or if she would become another part of Hanako-san's tragic story. Although fear surged within her, the student could not give up. She knew that what was happening was not random, and no matter how terrified she was, she had to find a way to help Hanako-san. She couldn't leave behind a tormented soul, trapped in the school forever. The guilt and her determination to fight through the fear drove her to keep going. With courage, the student began to light a small candle in the bathroom. The faint flame illuminated part of the dense darkness surrounding her. She slowly began to pray, her voice trembling but steady. "Hanako-san, I pray for you, hoping that you can be freed from this resentment. Please forgive and release the pain you've carried all these years." She closed her eyes, focusing on her prayer, hoping that Hanako-san's spirit would hear her words. A few seconds later, a gentle change occurred. The faint figure of Hanako-san, which had been so clear in the mirror, began to fade. Her eyes, filled with resentment and sorrow, slowly dimmed, as though the student's prayer had been heard. The student felt Hanako-san's presence gradually disappear, as if an immense burden had been lifted. She no longer felt the chill or the threat, but instead a strange sense of relief. As soon as Hanako-san's figure completely vanished, the silence in the bathroom returned. Everything seemed to revert to its original state, as if nothing had happened. The student let out a relieved breath, but within her heart, there was a deep sense of gratitude. She knew that at last Hanako-san had been set free, and the resentment no longer haunted the school. From that day on, the school bathroom was no longer haunted by tormented souls. Hanako-san, though a ghost with a tragic past, was finally set free. But her story lives on, reminding us that sometimes trapped souls only need a little compassion and understanding. Would you dare face Hanako-san?